Are the Jewish people still God's chosen people, or have the Christians taken their place? Is the Israel we see on the news today the same Israel we read about in the Bible? And if so, what does that mean for the world we live in now? Because once again, the land of Israel is at the center of global attention. The conflict between Israel and Palestine has reignited with violence, fear, and heartbreak on both sides. Around the world, protests erupt, accusations fly, and hatred towards Israel and the Jewish people grows louder every day. Why does the world turn its anger towards one small nation? Why does anti-Semitism resurface generation after generation? And could it be that what's happening in the headlines today is connected to something much older, something spiritual, something even prophetic? From the very beginning, Israel has been more than just a nation. It began with a promise, a covenant made by God to a man named Abraham, that through his descendants, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. From Egypt's slavery to the Exodus, from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land, God's chosen people carried his word, his law, and his light to the world. But history has not been kind. Israel fell, rose, and fell again. Empires conquered, temples burned, and yet the Jewish people endured. After nearly 2,000 years, prophecy met history. Israel was reborn. The desert bloomed. The ancient language of Hebrew was spoken once again. And today, that same Israel stands surrounded by enemies, by global criticism, and by questions that reach all the way back to Scripture. Is this the same Israel of the Bible? Does God still have a covenant with his chosen people? And what does that mean for the church and for the future of the world? Because to understand Israel's story is to understand the story of God's faithfulness, a promise that began thousands of years ago and still shapes our headlines today. It's time to look beyond the politics, beyond the protests, and to uncover the truth in history, in prophecy, and in faith. Welcome to CrossTalk, real conversations about Israel, the Bible, and the God who keeps his promises. Let's jump right in. Hi, my name is Elijah Weiss, and this is my grandfather, Dr. Randy Weiss, and we are Jews. We're what's called Messianic Jews, and a lot of people don't even believe that's a thing. So today I have a very interesting conversation. My grandfather is an educated man. He has multiple college degrees, lots of which in Jewish studies, and I just want to ask him some questions and things that the world believes today and why they believe what they do. And man, I just want to ask him some real raw questions and hopefully get some real raw answers. So a lot of people, a big thing that I've heard is, well, Israel, as in Abraham's descendants to Jacob turned to Israel, is not the Israel today. I hear the different arguments and why this is the case, but a lot of people are saying God was promising it to Abraham, and this is where we get the replacement theology, which a lot of people will get into that in a second, where they're saying that promise through Abraham went to Jacob, was fulfilled by Jesus, and now it's no longer an actual nation of Israel, but it's a spiritual Israel, and we are the spiritual Israel as Christians. So the nation of Israel that's now a state in the Middle East is, okay, whatever, it's a state. That's what a lot of people are arguing nowadays. What do you say about that?
Well, that's cute, but it's biblically ludicrous.
Explain.
Well, I mean, the Bible is very explicit that, God made his promises to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and then to the children of Jacob, the children of Israel.
Yeah.
And those promises, if God would be of the nature that he would break his promise to the children of Israel, why would a Christian think that he can be depended on to keep his promise to Christians? I mean, God's either a promise keeper or a promise breaker.
So what do you say to those that are saying that he's keeping his promise through Christians, and the promise was Jesus, and Jesus is the fulfillment of whatever he promised to Abraham and so on and so forth?
Once again, that's cute, but I mean, it's just not. It's not biblical. You referred to replacement theology.
Yeah.
There's a notion held by heretics of the Christian faith, not Christian,
Yeah.
not biblically orthodox Christians, but people who are either confused or maybe they misunderstand. More likely, they have just accepted really bad teaching. It's heretical.
Yeah.
Again, I repeat, if God would break his promise to Israel, how can he be trusted to keep his promise to the church? And in reality, the notion of replacement theology that is fairly popular
Yeah.
among people who have an agenda, a negative agenda. And again, I don't know what else to call them except heretics. It's just not
I agree.
normative, orthodox, biblical teaching. Their view is, oh, well, God changed his mind on the Jews because they were bad people. They did this, that, and the other, and they did many bad things. I won't dispute that. But they will often say, well, the Jews killed Christ, and therefore God is done with the Jews.
Yeah.
And the church has replaced Israel. And that's just really bad teaching. The church has not replaced Israel.
Yeah.
The church is the church. Israel is Israel. And the term spiritual Israel, okay, I'll go for that. But it's an adoption.
The Jews and the Gentiles.
Right. God made a way for the Gentiles, the Goyim, okay, the nations. One of the most precious prophetic fulfillments proving the messiahship of Jesus is that he would be a light to the nations, to the Goyim, a light to the Gentiles. Because of Jesus, the world has come to know about the God of Israel.
Yeah.
This is real. When you think in terms of the connection that exists today because of Jesus, God has made a way for those people who had no hope. They were without hope in this world. They had no connection to the God of Israel. But through Jesus, they have been adopted into the vine, okay?
Yeah.
They've been grafted into the vine. That does not remove the promises of God made to Israel.
Agreed. Another thing that I hear a lot of times is, like you said, they say the Jews killed Jesus, so God is done with them. It's not only that, but I've heard a lot of people say, well, if the Jews are God's chosen people, one, why did they kill Jesus? And two, why don't they believe in Jesus?
Good questions. And people who have an agenda often answer those questions really poorly and develop entire formats of thinking that establishes, well, this must be true, so they carry it forward into ways.
Yeah, they twist words of different scriptures.
Right, but it's just not true. Number one, to say the Jews killed Christ is really a horrifying stereotype.
You've written a couple books on it.
Yes, I have. When people tell me the Jews killed Christ, I tend to ask them, oh, which Jew killed Christ? Because, number one, it wasn't a Jew. These were Romans that killed Christ. The Jews didn't have the authority to kill Christ to execute in the legal system of the era. And if you want to say the Jews killed Christ, I would say, okay, blame me. I did it.
True.
Jesus died for my sins. And oh, by the way, if he didn't die for your sins, you can carry your own sins. But if he died for your sins, you killed Christ too.
It's also kind of a prideful way of thinking that you think that the God of all creation that has a perfect plan that wanted Jesus to die on the cross for all of our sins was fallen to this group of horrible, corrupt Jews, and they're the whole world is just corrupted by this group of people. That doesn't make sense to me.
And that's because you have a fair amount of critical thinking capabilities.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks it through, if in fact the Jews, whoever they were, had the power
Yeah.
to kill Christ, wow, those are some seriously powerful people. That notion, that idea that is fairly popularly believed, which is sad. I mean, we live in a biblically illiterate society.
Yeah.
And people who believe that way, that's kind of evidence of their lack of simple biblical literacy. Because the scriptures are very clear. Nobody killed Jesus like...
God sacrificed him.
Yeah, he gave himself.
Yeah. I think the other thing is when you look at it from the perspective of Israel, the Jews were God's chosen people, and the Gentiles are grafted in, well, if the whole rest of the Bible was written to Jews, about Jews, and Jesus is coming to fulfill the Jews and the laws that they follow, why would they not be involved in the sacrifice? Why would they not be involved? Like, they're Jewish people. And I think the corrupt Jews that were involved with the Roman government, that were trying to do this to Jesus because they were going to lose their power, they were going to lose their influence on the laws they have been implementing all this time, why would that be a reflection on all Jewish people or the Jews themselves, rather than, hey, these people happen to be Jewish and they killed Jesus, these people happen to be Jewish and they started the church after Jesus died?
From a standpoint of a logical answer to that, I can understand how someone could take a verse out of context, such as, his blood be upon us.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a real verse
Yeah.
in the scriptures, and it was spoken by some Jewish guy. What gave that guy the right to speak
For all the Jews.
for all the Jewish people? And the answer is, well, nothing. And in reality, if one looks at the culture, the history, and the biblical narrative, most of the Jewish people in Israel at that time, in Jerusalem, if they were asked, hey, what do you think of this Jesus guy?
They loved them.
They loved him.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were some people who hated him, it's true, there were some.
Yeah.
But there's no biblical evidence that it represented the Jewish people. In fact, the New Testament is very clear about these matters. You reread with, I hope, with an open mind, the New Testament, and with a clear mind, and do away with an agenda that says,
I want to think this way.
yeah. If you read the literature for what it says, you get this picture of these soldiers coming to arrest Jesus.
Yeah, in the night.
In the night. They came, the people were there with lanterns and torches.
They didn't want to start a riot.
Yeah. Why would they have had lanterns and torches?
Yep. Secretly trying to kill him.
Yeah, it was in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
They didn't have CNN.
Yeah.
The Jewish people, for the most part, loved Jesus. They respected him.
Yeah.
They were enamored by him. Feed me. I want to see the miracles, heal, do these, raise the dead, do these things. I want to see these things. Some of them, I think, were fascinated. Whether they believed or they didn't believe, they were struck by the power that this man came in.
Yeah.
And his teachings, if you think about the teachings of Jesus, it's like, this guy was amazing.
Yeah.
And the Jewish people who heard his teachings, they loved it. I mean,
even the people that wanted to kill him were enamored by the things he was saying and doing.
yeah. So I personally believe it was a small number of Jewish leaders
Yeah.
who were lobbying to have Jesus killed. Clearly, there
Yeah.
were Jews who hated Jesus, but I think it was a small number. And I think they were in leadership, but even if you look at the leadership, that's a small group. The Sanhedrin had 70 guys and a high priest, 71 people who had something to lose or something to gain by his death.
True.
And they all were not in favor of this.
Yep. I mean, you look at someone like Nicodemus who traveled to see Jesus in the night and talked to him because he understood this is not what should be happening.
Yeah, Joseph of Arimathea was a well-respected Jewish leader who had very strong feelings for, not against, Jesus.
So if you mentioned that all the Jews, or not all of them, a big group of the Jews, they loved Jesus, they saw his teachings, so why don't they believe him today? Why do they not believe in the things he taught and the things that Christians believe, that he's the Messiah and he's going to come again?
Well, in part because some Christians believe some really horrible things, and they act out the horrible things they believe.
Yeah, I mean, the Crusades.
Yeah, don't invite your Jewish friend to a crusade.
Yeah.
You know, we've been there, it didn't work out well for us.
Yeah.
You killed us. Okay?
Yeah. So, on that same line of thinking, you grew up Jewish. I grew up Jewish differently. You grew up as an actual, I'm Jewish, I'm not a Christian. Whenever you decided to give your life to Jesus, there was a very big shift in your family, because the way that Christians treated Jews was not a good, and you choosing to go to that side, I think at some level your family felt betrayed. They felt like, wow, how could my son that has lived his whole life with all this that I've taught him go to these people that have historically killed my people? Why do you, as a original Jew,
Right. I grew up in an observant, traditional Jewish home.
Yeah.
We were a religious family. The synagogue was central to our life. The Jewish faith was what we followed. And yes, many Jewish people have suffered at the hands of Christians. Many Jewish people feel that Christians don't like us, don't trust us, and they mistreat us. And this is just something that has been fairly common over a number of centuries. And that's very sad. And that would suggest that those Jewish people, well, let me say it this way. Some Jewish people reject Jesus because of the behavior of his representatives.
Yeah.
Okay? But not all. Some Jewish people reject Jesus because they reach different conclusions when they read the scriptures. And we both read the same Bible,
Yeah.
and we reached just different conclusions. It happens. Now, does that prove that one group is right and one group is wrong? No, not by itself. But just as there are Christians who have an agenda, who are convinced that the church has replaced Israel, that God one day woke up and said, man, them Jews, I made my deal with them and I just don't trust them anymore. They did this, that, and the other. You know, they were idol worshipers. They followed pagan gods, and then they went and they killed Jesus, my son. I'm done with them. Let me go and share my love with the non-Jewish pagans. Okay.
Like the humans are just different levels of bad.
It doesn't fly. It's not right. It's not true.
Yeah.
God has been faithful from the beginning. He will be faithful to the end. Not all Jews love God. Not all Jews serve God. Not all Jews are good, if there is such a thing.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. Not all non-Jews are good. Not all non-Jews
Yeah.
love God and serve God. The fact is, we are all sinners. And until a person acknowledges their failure, their sinfulness, their lack of direct connection to God because of their sin, there's no hope.
So for the Jews that don't believe in Jesus, you're a practicing observant Jew. Does that mean they're going to hell?
It means if they don't have an atonement for their sins, just like a non-Jew who fails to have atonement for their sins, they are a sinner guilty before God.
Yeah.
And unless one's guilt can be removed, erased, atoned for, there's no redemption. If there's not, there's a debt that is due. Sin, the wages of sin is death. There's a debt associated to sin, and that debt can only be paid by death.
Yeah. It's I think that gives a better understanding of what people believe, why they believe it, and kind of the opposite of, well, you're just not reading the Bible properly. But on the separate side of that, you look at modern day Israel, modern day Judaism, and I think a lot of people, they see them as evil. They see Jews as evil people. You look at the war in Israel and the people dying in Gaza, and there's people dying on both sides. That's not reported the same, but people just see Israel, what they call the modern state of Israel, and they immediately count out any connection to God. Their assumption is, well, these people, in the replacement theology mindset, these people are not chosen, these people are wicked, they're evil, and look at what their evilness is doing. What do you say to that?
Well, if you're talking about Gaza in particular, it's tragic. There's no...
Yeah, of course.
There's nothing redemptive about this horrifying circumstance. Do I blame the Jews for it? No, I do not. Gaza was 100% under Jewish control. 100%. And, the so-called Palestinians, okay, the whatever term you want to use for the people of that region, they wanted land.
Why do you say it that way? Just curious. When you say so-called, what do you mean by that?
Well, it was Jewish people who were Palestinians. Jews in Israel, their passport said Palestine. They were the Palestinians. Okay? The notion that the Arabs, who now call themselves Palestinians, they didn't do that. They did not used to be called Palestinians. That's a very recent thing. There was no such thing until the 1960s. It's very recent. Now, the name, it's an insult. Palestine, Palestinian, that's an insult that was given to the region, like at the third, I'll call it third Jewish revolt. Okay, there were revolts that the Jews revolted against Rome. I'm talking about ancient history in 70, and then in like 115, and then again around we'll call it 130. Okay, the third Jewish revolt. After that, Rome was simply done with Israel and the Jews, and it was like scorched earth, and they destroyed everything. And they kicked the Jews out. The Jews were
scattered.
Well, they were evicted. I mean, it was a bad situation. But it was the Romans who gave the name, referring to the Philistines as an insult to the Jews. The Philistines were the ancient arch enemy of Israel. And so they named the place after the worst enemy, of the Jewish people, to show the Jewish people, you're done, you're toast, you lost. And that name stuck and has become Palestine. By the way, when people carry those signs, free Palestine, what they mean is they want
destroy the Jews.
Yeah, they want a Palestine free of Jews.
Yeah.
But Gaza in particular, it was a Jewish area. Yeah. And in 2005, to pacify the Palestinians, they gave them Gaza. And the Palestinians moved in. They took over the Jewish infrastructure that was there, land, roads, buildings, farms, greenhouses, businesses, whatever was there. They took it all over.
Yeah.
And they could have made a wonderful place. But they elected Hamas, and they destroyed everything. Everything that they took over, they destroyed. And what was supposed to be land for peace was just land for terrorism.
Yeah. So you mentioned that Palestine or Palestinians wasn't even a thing until the 1960s.
Right.
So what do you say to those that, you look back in the history and all that I've seen is, well, the Jews stole this land in 1948 when they were becoming a state. They took the land and basically the Palestinians were pushed out and they were forced into these small areas. What do you say to that?
People who say that just have no concept of history. Okay, there was a war
Yeah.
like 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
From that point forward, there's always been a Jewish presence. It was the independent nation of Israel under King David, under King Solomon, and then a whole series of kings later. That it was, the Bible is just like so filled with that history.
Yeah.
And archaeologists they've just identified so much evidence of all this. Now it's fascinating. In the 1960s, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO.
PLO, yeah.
Okay, that's when suddenly the people group who lived there that weren't Jewish were suddenly called Palestinians. But the PLO was a terrorist organization. And they were horrifyingly violent, but they named themselves Palestinians. They were unknown before the 1960s. And how did they become known? By hijacking airplanes, hijacking cruise ships, slaughtering innocent civilians. They were monsters in Jordan. Ask yourself this question. They're constantly talked about our Palestinian brothers by the other Arab nations. What's the reason none of the Arab nations let them in? Why won't they let them come back to Jordan? Why won't they let them go into Egypt? Why won't they let them go to Saudi Arabia or Iraq, Iran? They don't want the Palestinians because they're a political pawn, and wherever they've gone, it's been really bad. They've done horrifying things.
Yeah. So then why is the narrative right now what it is with Israel and Palestine? Because all I see in the media is, well, Israel is this big bully, even though they're this big compared to their enemies. There's this big bully and they're ethnically cleansing Gaza and they're going to completely wipe out the Palestinian people, and they've been oppressing them for years, and the oppression has to stop and, free Palestine.
Because some people simply they don't like Jews, okay? They have a notion that they pick who is the underdog. And they have picked, the Middle East is like 99.8% Arab.
Yeah.
Muslim.
Israel's
a slice smaller than 0.5% of the area. And the population is about the same kind of disproportion. Yet, that less than 0.5% of the land and a minuscule percentage of the population suddenly, the 99.8% are the underdogs.
So what about you look at the map of Israel and it's like this and that tiny little piece of Gaza. So what makes them not the underdogs?
I would say in the current circumstance, when you look at how Israel, with its powerful military, has mounted its campaign in Gaza, that the Palestinians do look like the underdogs. They do. But I don't think it's a justifiable narrative.
Because the Arabs are the ones helping the Palestinians?
No. They're calling this a genocide.
Yeah.
That's ludicrous.
They're comparing it to the Holocaust.
Right. That's ludicrous.
The modern day Holocaust.
So for a genocide to be a genocide, number one, the goal has to be to wipe out a people group.
Yeah.
Israel doesn't want to wipe out the Arabs of Israel. Arabs have more freedom in Israel than they do in most of the Arab nations. Arabs have their own parties in the Knesset. They have more rights in Israel because Israel is a free and democratic nation.
Yeah.
Most of the Arab nations are not. Additionally, for a genocide to be a genocide, it has to be such that there's nothing that the victims of the genocide can do to stop the genocide. Hence, the Jews in the Holocaust were victims of the Nazis who wanted to wipe out the Jewish people. And there is nothing that the Jews could have done to have pacified the Nazis to stop the genocide except die.
Yeah.
In Gaza, there were only two things required: release the hostages and stop killing Jews.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay? At that point, the war would have ended.
So then why is that the minority opinion? Why is the world so against Israel if you look at it on a bird's eye view and you see all the facts and you put it out? How do people not come to this conclusion? Like why is it such a hard conclusion to come to?
Because there are so many left-leaning people who their minds are made up before they even consider the facts. When I don't think normal, rational, honorable people would carry signs and say, "I want to kill all the Jews in Israel." They wouldn't do that. Most of them wouldn't.
They say from the river to the sea.
They carry a sign that says from the river to the sea, and they don't understand that means kill all the Jews.
Yeah.
Drive them into the sea. Get them out of Israel. Kill them.
What I don't understand in this is, it's two pools of thought. One, there's people that don't think the Holocaust happened, and so any level of empathy towards the Jews is you're already taking out a huge chunk of empathy in that. But the other side is, if you do believe the Holocaust happened, which is very historically documented that it did, but if you do believe that the Holocaust happened, how can you be so just non-empathetic towards the fact that we had nowhere to go? There's scattered all throughout the world, and the fact that we got a place in 1948 to stay, and now again they're trying to wipe us out. Where do they want us to go? Do they want us to emigrate to America?
No, they want us to not exist.
And that's the opposite side of the genocide, because obviously, like you said at the beginning, it is horrifying the fact that people are dying in Gaza. But the most horrifying thing in my mind is the lack of understanding and heart for the fact that the Jews have a right to be a people.
The hostages have been released, and for that, I thank God, and most people are thankful for that. We can't lose sight of the fact. How can you call this, how can an honest, serious person not recognize there would be no genocide, as they want to call it, in Gaza if Hamas had not slaughtered
October 7th.
October 7th. If they had not killed, maimed, raped, and kidnapped
Yeah.
these hostages, this is not a genocide. It is a defense against a hostile enemy of terrorists. Now, at this point, one can pretty easily make the argument that that war is over, insofar as the Israeli military has decimated Hamas in Gaza. Do I believe that's the end of hostilities? I wish I could say I do, but I don't. I heard a guy on the radio on the way into the office this morning, and he was talking about the hostage exchange, the hostages and the prisoners. He called it a prisoner swap, and he said these were prisoners of war.
You're referring to the Israel and Palestine.
Yes, and there's like 2,000 Palestinians that are being exchanged for 20 Israeli hostages. And he was making an argument that, this is a prisoner of war exchange. And the host of the radio was smart enough to acknowledge, no, you can't call these people prisoners of war. This was not a war. These were terrorists.
Yeah.
Hamas is a terrorist organization. They're not a nation. They don't. He said, no, but they're military. No, these are terrorists. And there are, we'll call it 2,000 terrorists.
Versus 20 innocent people.
Right. And it was a call-in show, and the host asked the caller, so do you think it was inappropriate to release these prisoners to
the 2,000 people?
Yeah. And he said, yeah. And the host said, well, so would you have sacrificed the 20? He said, yeah, because these people were bad, they did bad things, and so forth and so on. And it was like he didn't recognize this. And he said, if you do this, it's just going to encourage more hostage taking, more kidnapping. You can't negotiate with terrorists. He missed the point. He just missed the point. This is, number one, not new. Israel has, for many, many years, been willing to swap crazy amounts of horrible people who committed murder.
They care for their people.
Israel, the Jewish people, value life.
Yeah.
And nobody will stand and protect Jewish lives. Jewish lives matter to Jews.
Yeah.
Jewish lives matter to Israel. And Israel was willing, although it's a terrible thing to do, to release terrorist murderers back into the population who will kill again. Israel made an enormous number of murderers and prisoners that they had, terrorists that they had in prison. They released to bring back one Israeli soldier.
Yeah.
Some years ago.
I remember that.
Okay? That the value of the life of that one Israeli soldier was worth it. From that prisoner exchange came the mastermind of the October 7th attack.
Wow.
Yeah, Israel knows it's bad to take bad people that you have finally plucked off the battlefield and arrested and imprisoned. It's bad to turn them back to do more evil.
They value life more, though.
They value life more. In contradistinction, you look at the Hamas monsters, and they will use their women and their children and the innocent at every turn as human shields, not caring for life. In fact, valuing them more as dead pawns that they can have a photograph of for their public relation campaigns, their propaganda to blame the evil Jews.
It's true. And there's two things, and I'm going to switch to a different subject, but as I've heard multiple times, when Israel would attack, because they understood that Hamas would put their military underneath hospitals and underneath schools, when they would attack, they would go door to door, or they would drop flyers and they would tell people, hey, we are about to attack here, get out. It's not like their goal was genocide. Their goal wasn't to take the innocent people of Gaza out. Their goal was to eliminate the enemies, but the media is so the opposite, and they're so pushing the agenda that Israel is the bad guys and these horrible people that all of that is not reported on. On a separate note, an opinion that I keep hearing grow more traction is that Israel is controlling the American government, and that Trump is under Israel's control. And you see all this stuff coming out about AIPAC, and if you speak out against Israel, then you're gonna basically you're done for. They're gonna put all this money against you. You look at Charlie Kirk, and people are saying that he started to go against Israel, and then they assassinated him. One, where does this all come from? And two, what is your thoughts against that?
One of the biggest problems Israel and the Jews face in the world is they're lousy at propaganda. And the experts in propaganda are their enemies. And the truth is, they need to do better. Yeah. They need to do better of telling the true story, telling why they do what they do. But you're talking about a very small group of people. The Jewish people is a minuscule percentage of the population. And there are so many challenges in Israel. It's a nation this big, surrounded by people who hate them and want to destroy them, and have in recent history attempted to wipe them off the map.
Yeah.
So, a major percentage of their national economy is focused on surviving. Okay? And yes, they have a powerful military. If they didn't, there would be no Israel. It's just that simple. So when you look at America, and America is the best friend Israel has, and the Christians, the evangelicals of America, are in that subset the best friend that Israel has ever had. And many people in Israel recognize it is the evangelical Christians that they can count on, except those evangelical Christians who have fallen prey to bad teaching and replacement theology, which, by the way, is not new.
Yeah.
Replacement theology goes back to early church fathers who were trying to distance themselves from the Jews of their time, the Jewish Christians even of their time. As horrible as some of it is, and I've written books on the topic, so I'm not ignorant about it, I will give them a pass in a large degree, because these were formative years and these were massive changes that were taking place. And there was a lot to figure out. But anybody who reads the 9th, 10th, and 11th chapters of Paul's letter to the Romans you have to disregard what Paul wrote.
Yeah, 100%.
To turn against the Jews.
Especially chapter 11, where he literally writes, God is not done with the Jews.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's telling the church, don't be prideful.
Yeah.
Don't be arrogant in the fact that you're loved and you're grafted in. Don't be arrogant, and that's exactly what the people who have fallen prey to replacement theology are. They're saying, we have replaced Israel. Yeah. God likes us better. God doesn't like them. And it's just so dangerous. It's so bad. In answer to your question, in America, in political circles, in funding matters, Israel knows it needs the support of America. So when America has an administration that is not friendly towards Israel, they still have to protect themselves. We have had presidents in this country who have been very anti-Semitic, very anti-Israel. And currently we have a president that is very pro-Israel.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you he's a perfect guy. I'm not telling you all of his ideas are the best. I'm not telling you he's a nice man. He's pro-Israel. And he's the guy that basically has told Israel on a number of occasions, take the gloves off, do what you have to do. But he's also at different times said, put the gloves on, don't do this now. Israel is an independent nation. They have to make the decisions that are right for their citizens. And is AIPAC a powerful force in American politics? Every lobbying organization that has money is a powerful force in American politics. Sure. AIPAC is one. But let's be realistic. The people who say the Jews control America, they simply do not understand. And the fact is, there are Jews in America who are anti-Israel.
Yeah.
There are Jews. I was in New York City recently, and there was a Palestinian, Free Palestine, river to the sea, you know. There was a parade, a protest, a march. And my wife, your grandmother, she was very nervous because, I mean, this could have gotten out of control. And we're just trying to get from one place to where we're going to go get a sandwich at a deli, okay? But standing right there with the protesters is a Jewish rabbi with a sign.
Yeah, I think you made a wrong turn, buddy.
There are Jews who believe Israel is not supposed to be Israel until Messiah comes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a theological position that some religious Jews hold. There are non-religious Jews who are just liberal, left-leaning. They stand with our enemies, and it's shocking. I don't know how they can do it. I don't know how so many Jews can vote against politicians who stand for Israel. I won't name political parties because it doesn't matter. But there are obvious differences in the platforms of political parties.
You mentioned the left-wing liberals that are so for Palestine against Israel. The funny thing about that, and it's look at everything they believe and how far they fight for gay rights and trans rights and abortion and all these things that are there's just such American things and now have been adopted by the world. Go to Gaza. Go to anywhere run by Palestinians or the PLO or Hamas. You're not making it a second.
No, they're going to kill you.
They're going to murder you.
Yeah.
But you're so far against Israel that you're just blinded by your ignorance to the fact that these people don't like you. Their protests are death to America. You're American. Why are you supporting these people?
It's a new day in Gaza. And I don't think we know what tomorrow holds. We just can't. There's this 20-point plan that is being discussed. I cared most about the first point, and that was getting the hostages released. I firmly believe that this war never would have happened if were it not for October 7th.
Yeah.
And this war would have ended the moment Hamas released the hostages and committed to stop killing Jews. 2 points.
Yeah.
My solution to the war is 2 points. Release the hostages, don't kill Jews. They've released the hostages. Now the question is, are they willing to stop killing Jews?
Yeah.
And there's a possibility that they will because they've been so badly beaten, and the Arab nations in the region are not going to pay them to keep killing Jews because that's their gig.
Yeah.
I think there's a good possibility that there's been enough negotiating that we'll never know about what was happening behind closed doors between our leaders and the leaders of other Middle Eastern nations and Israel, that there may be enough people in the area who simply want to live and have commerce and do business.
Be in peace.
If they can have economic incentives to be rational, normal, civilized citizens of the world, there's going to be less uncivilized monstrosities running the area.
Yeah. I think the bottom line is it's sad. People died. Kids died. Families died on both sides. And I think one thing that the media gets right is it's sad.
Yeah.
That's the simplest fact.
When the numbers are finally tabulated, and eventually they're going to have, it's going to be known approximately, really, not Hamas statistics, not anti-Israel statistics, but eventually it's going to be known how many civilians died as compared to how many combatants died. I believe it will be shown that as a percentage, this will probably be identified as one of the most civilized military campaigns in world history, as far as the least percentage of civilians who were...
They weren't used as collateral purposely. And I think something that a lot of people forget is we live in the most modern day ever, and every next day is the most modern day ever. They didn't have the same level of reporting, the same level of everyone's a smartphone reporter and social media. So you comparing this to every other war that's happened, when not every other war that's happened has, in the midst of it, been documented, I just think it's intellectually not sound. Like, you're not giving yourself the right facts to come to the conclusion that you're coming to.
Yeah, and I hope that enough people have seen the pictures on social media of this dead Palestinian laying on the ground, and then the next picture where he's sitting up working on a cell phone.
Yeah.
Because...
The Hollywoodists, I've heard it before.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I really hope Hamas refrains, and the people that are released in the swap refrain from violence, because they are already killing. Palestinians are already killing other Palestinians. Hamas are killing tribes. There's different tribal groups, different clans in Gaza, and they're vying for who's going to be in charge. Part of it because they want power. Part of it because there's going to be a ton of money flowing into the region, and different people probably want to control all these billions of dollars that are going to come in to rebuild. There's going to be graft, there's going to be corruption. Maybe there'll be some good things that happen too. Maybe there will be some rebuilding. But Hamas is more than willing to kill the other clan leaders and the other clans themselves.
I think they're willing to kill anyone that gets in their way.
Right. It is my hope that they keep their killing among themselves, because if they, and I don't mean to say that like I hope they kill each other.
Yeah,
I don't.
I get what you're saying.
If they try and kill Jews,
It's not going to be good.
the hostages are gone now.
Yeah.
It is my opinion, regardless of what anybody would say to the Israeli leaders,
We tried.
Don't go after them. They're going to go after them.
Yeah.
And it was a horrific thing. I don't know how the Israeli government functioned. I don't know how the Israeli people kept it together, knowing their sons and daughters were being tormented by these monsters.
Yeah.
And knowing the risk that they were under as Israel was attacking Gaza. Knowing, how terrible. I can't even begin to imagine, and I don't want to. But now that the hostages are gone, whatever restraint Israel used, I think would be lost if these monsters once again attacked Israel.
Yeah. And I think at some point it's like, you did it to yourself. Like, we tried.
From the beginning, they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Any thinking person who knows the facts has got to recognize they did this to themselves. Their foolish belief was that they could make this attack on October 7th and win and do enough damage to Israel that Israel wouldn't respond. Had they done enough damage to Israel, had Hezbollah joined in like they assumed they would, had the Muslim terrorists in Syria or in Iraq, in Iran, had they damaged Israel enough that Israel couldn't respond, they'd have been okay.
Yeah, but they weren't okay.
They weren't okay.
Yeah.
And they lost.
Yeah.
And Israel has now shown the world, please spare yourselves. Don't mess with us. And I don't think Israel is ever going to take the attitude again. We just want you to like us. Please like us.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes us anyway. And Jewish lives matter to Jews.
Yeah, it's true. I think along the lines of that phrase, Jewish lives matter, you could take out the two Jews part. The common opinion, I think, is that Jews are just, they're corrupt, they control the media, they control the world, they're the billionaires, this and this and that. And then you hear people like Kanye West, who we've talked about in previous episodes, who is just spewing this, I mean, purely anti-Semitic, anti-Jew rhetoric. And then people, you know, it's been a year since that happened. People agree with him now. We're at a point where he says things like, the Holocaust never happened, or I agree with Hitler, or he's used the phrase, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on these Jews. People agree with him, and they're at the point where, oh, Kanye is not that crazy. You get into this whole separate theological heresy where there's people that believe that the Jews aren't even the Jews. And we're at a day and age where people are so uneducated and they want to believe so badly what they want to believe that they just completely take away this group of people, and they assume, well, the Ethiopian Jews are the original Jews, or the black people are the original Jews, and the Jews now are the ones that just were grafted in, or whatever you want to call it. What do you say to that?
I say the world is in a place where it's not a shock that Jews are hated. It's not a shock. This shouldn't surprise us as Christians or people who believe the Bible.
Yeah.
The world is going to turn against Israel and the Jews. It's happening. We shouldn't be surprised. The better question is, why are there Jews still in America? Why am I here? We're here because we're comfortable. We're here because we have assimilated. We belong in Israel. Before the end comes, God will call the Jews back to Israel. It's already begun.
Yeah.
America is kind of the last stronghold where there's a huge Jewish population compared to the rest of the world. I mean, we're a tiny fraction of a nothing. You can't even call us a minority. But we're going to be back in Israel. I mean, if one believes prophetically, do you think we're going to go because of the weather? Are we going to go because we like the hummus? We are going to go because of hatred and violence. We're going to be driven away. The Jews in Germany and parts of Europe thought, well, we're part of this culture. We're professors and doctors, and we have jobs, and artists and musicians, and we served in the military. They're never going to turn against us. Whoops.
Yep.
They should have left then. They didn't. They died. Many of us paid attention because our aunts and our uncles and our mothers and our fathers came back with tattoos on their arms. from the camps, or they didn't come back at all. And we know, we can't deny the death and destruction.
Yeah.
So many Jews are smart enough to know we better stand with Israel. It's the only place we can go when it gets bad. And it's going to get bad. It's already getting bad, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So don't be surprised. The real shock here is, how can a Christian, a person who calls himself a Christian, how can a Christian who loves Jesus hate the Jews? How can you hate the people of Jesus?
Yeah.
Jesus was a Jew.
Yep.
How can you say you love Jesus and you hate his people?
Yeah.
Jesus isn't coming back to Kansas City. Jesus isn't coming back to Cairo. Jesus is coming back to Jerusalem.
Yeah, the Mount of Olives.
Yeah.
It saddens me that so many people can just lay down and not do any research or any sort of actual understanding or get educated on what the world is and why the Bible says this and so on and so forth. But people go to people's opinions for education. I had multiple friends that we got in a conversation about the Kanye West stuff, and I made the comment, Kanye's going crazy, and they argued with me. They said, well, I actually agree with him, or, well, I actually don't believe your people are the Jews. And it's just mind-boggling to me that we live in a society that this is a commonly adopted opinion. If you do any research at all, you can come to an understanding, actual research, not podcasts or social media influencers. You come to the understanding, well, how can you say the Ethiopians are the original Jews or black people are the original Jews? There's a clear backstory, a clear lineage. Like, we were scattered, yes, that's why there's Ethiopian Jews.
Scripture says many are called, few are chosen. The people who now or in the future will absolutely hate and despise the Jews are part of the many.
Yeah.
The world will see to it that the Jews are back in Israel by their hatred, by their venomous behavior, by their violence. We're not going to go because, oh, the Bible says we're going to be there, I guess we should just go. Most of us are not going to go on that basis. We will go, most of us. And by the way, I want to be in Israel. I want Israeli citizenship. I hope someday, as a Jewish believer in Jesus, I will be welcomed. At this time, I'm not. And that hurts. The law of return doesn't extend to me. I wish it did, and I hope someday it will. Nevertheless, Israel wants the Jews to come home.
Yeah.
God wants his children to come home, and we will. I just don't think it's going to be because of an invitation. I think it's going to be because of circumstances.
Yeah.
And the people who join with Kanye will be the accelerant to these things.
It's already started.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the anti-Semitism that has been on the rise throughout Europe has sent many of the Jews of France, and Islam is really gaining a tremendous foothold in England, as an example. And there are many Jews in England who are very uncomfortable with Sharia law kind of being put into effect in areas, Muslim mayors, where they're not friendly towards the Jews. There's talk of those things happening here. Who knows if and when it will occur. I don't know what the turning point is, but there is a turning point that will come.
what gives me hope is Jesus' words when he said, remember, if they hate you, they hated me first. And it gives me hope.
Well said, young man.
It gives me hope. Well, I appreciate you talking to me, and hopefully other people can benefit from our conversation and not hate us.